people to look out for if they're in an area where wildcats may live. It's really that big bushy tail that should be nice, big bushy black rings, blunt-ended, about 4 or 5 rings on it, and there is a black dorsal stripe that runs down. That should stop at the base of the tail. You can see quite a definite black stripe there, and on an ideal looking wildcat we would expect that just to end very bluntly at the top of the tail. But what we're unsure on is the sort of degree of hybridisation. Could he still be a pure wildcat and have that dorsal stripe that continues onto the tail? Some people say no, some people say it may not be an issue. But what is important is that we find out a lot more information about the degree of hybridisation.
He's looking at us very indignantly, his authenticity. If we care about protecting the Scottish wildcat in the wild, it has to be the real macaw. I don't believe you can let every single cat that's living in the wild exist, because over time, if they continue to interbreed with the wild population, with the pure population, a couple of generations, the pure wildcat is completely gone, and that's why we really have to act now.
I'm here to help a pioneering new wildcat project. It's led by Paul O'Donoghue, who hopes to catch a wildcat and genetically test it for the very first time. Our first job is to search the woodland for signs.
See if you can see any fur samples or scat.
Oh, here we go. That's a cat here.
Ah, yeah.
Is it?
You can see. It certainly looks like it. It's got paler at the bottom, and it's got the brown tip. Looks like a guard hair.
Yeah, I love that. You just start looking for these signs. So you come to a likely place and you walk through the forest, you think, how on earth are we going to find these animals or find any signs of them? The signs are there. You just have to look in detail.
Maybe we should think about setting up a camera trap on this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Place.
Absolutely.
Or maybe even baiting up this area a little bit. Yeah. See.
I'm installing a remote camera trap to see if we can get a sighting. This is one of many set up across the Highlands.
I would say within the next 6 to 8 weeks, a cat will come and sit in this exact spot, and if the batteries hold out, we'll capture it on camera. Okay, I think that's good to go. Best of luck. Your project is about finding out if there are still purebred wildcats living in Scotland.
This is the ultimate aim of the project, to prove beyond doubt there are genetically pure Scottish wildcats. Yeah. And I think once we can show that, that will greatly move forward wildcat conservation. Because at the moment there's a doubt.
Yeah.
The urgency of the situation can't really be stressed enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that there's less than 50 left.
And how can we, in the United Kingdom, go to another country and say, you must protect your wild animals, you must save the tiger, the rhino, the elephant?
Well, I mean, it's almost laughable. Our last major carnivore is on the brink of extinction. No, it's far more endangered than the Siberian tiger.
The next day, I return to check my camera trap.
You never know. Nope. It's not a cat. It looks like a cat, but it's a pine marten. Pine marten just there. You hear how windy it was last night. An area like this is fantastic for a cat, but generally where's good for a cat, it's also good for pine martens.
Local sightings also help to build up the picture.
Morning.
And there was a kerfuffle outside the lounge window there, round on the little bit of rockery, and there was this monster of a... As well, I thought it was a wildcat. I'm convinced it was, by its markings, its tail. It used to frequent the garden, and it pounced on the cat, and that was a hefty vet's bill.
So how much bigger than your domestic cat was this wild cat?
Easily half as big again. It was a big cat, yes. But what a privilege if we have. That's the way I look at it. Okay, then you just carry on.
Following this sighting and others in the area, Paul decides to set up cage traps.
There's absolutely no way an animal would go into a cage like this or trap without a little bit of enticement. So what we want to do is tie this on here and basically make this trap disappear.
Trapping the animals is the only way to take the blood samples needed to genetically identify a pure wildcat.
We'll leave it locked up at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll come back last thing tonight. We'll set that and we'll check it first thing in the morning.
Great.
See what we get.
Good. It's looking good.
The hope is that by finding a pure wildcat in the Western Highlands, they can be isolated and protected from crossbreeding in the future. The next morning, it's time to check the traps. We check all 7 of them,
Nothing in it this time.
but no joy yet.
They're automatically suspicious. Even a cat knows there's no such thing as a free meal. And
Exactly.
Is that furrowed? Something like that. This is the trap that we set out yesterday, but you see the door's still up. Yeah, the bait's still at the back.
I say the figures of maybe 50 wildcats remaining are probably true. And that's why you can't stress enough the urgency. And it's getting people to realise that it's direct action now that will save the wildcat.
But without any doubt, if nothing is done, the wildcat is doomed.
100% the wildcat will be extinct in the next 2 or 3 years if nothing's done. There's no argument about that.
This is the last trap of the morning. There's no wildcat here. The reason these animals are so hard to trap, so hard to film, so hard to see is because there's possibly fewer than 50 of them left in Scotland.
There's still a long way to go, but hopefully the setting up of a breeding programme in a protected area such as this will mean that the wildcat can thrive once again in its remote Highland home.
There is a long journey ahead to help protect the wildcat, but history has shown us that we can bring endangered species back from the brink. To prove it, I've come to mid-Wales to witness one of the most triumphant conservation achievements ever.
Oh, the amount of meat I'm shoveling just goes to show how successful this has been.
The red kite.
Wow, look at this!
With a wingspan of almost 2 metres, the red kite is one of our most successful birds of prey.
Look at that!
But just a century ago, this magnificent bird was virtually lost from Britain.
But to see this many red kites just wheeling and interacting above your head, it's close to mind-blowing.
Birder and historian Rob Lambert is passionate about red kites and has followed their extraordinary story for many years.
I was a young birder in Bolton and I begged my dad to drive me over here to central Wales. And I remember we stood for hours and hours waiting to see a red kite. And finally we saw one, this incredible bird. And I remember vividly, a moment that lives with me forever, Dad slapped me on the back and said, "Red kite, son." He said, "What a bird."
And that's how it goes down on the records. Why have we had such a disastrous history with the red kite?
The story in medieval London was one of usefulness. The kites were of value to us. They cleaned up our refuse, they cleaned up the pavements, they ate our poo. They were municipal dustmen. Then, in rural Britain, they became more and more of a pest. For the next 400 years, we persecuted the kite ruthlessly. We developed better ways to shoot them, we developed better ways to trap them, and that plunged them into a catastrophic situation at the end of the 19th century and early 20th century, where there were maybe 10 kites left in these remote valleys of Wales.
The red kite just managed to hang on, but even by the late 20th century, the species was still confined to this part of Wales. So a reintroduction programme was begun to bring the bird back to England and Scotland. Within a few years, numbers rocketed, and the red kite went from being one of Britain's rarest birds to a common sight for more and more people.
Wales can no longer claim, if you like, that this is their national bird. They're now not just a woodland bird. We're seeing them on motorways and in gardens. I love the fact that in the home counties that people walk into their gardens with a peanut feeder in one hand for the blue tits and a cooked chicken in the other hand to put out for the red kites. I think all those of us who come here to central Wales, where once there were 4 or 5 red kites, and there are now 400 kites in the air, owe an enormous debt of gratitude to those early pioneers who protected this bird. And really, if you were to think of a conservation success story in 20th century Britain, the red kite would be that bird.
Thanks to the efforts of those pioneering conservationists, today the UK has around 2,000 breeding pairs of kites, close to 1/10 of the whole world population.
This is Mr. Black. He's a captive bred red kite, so he's happy enough to sit in my hand and give me this beautiful close-up look. And it's a really lovely opportunity to really showboat about what a gorgeous bird it is and how tragic it would have been had we lost them. They're quite big as birds of prey goes, but in spite of its size, they don't necessarily catch large prey items, and that's because of these weapons down here, these talons. They're not the biggest, and neither is that bill, so they tend to be more scavengers in the countryside, although they can catch smaller birds and smaller mammals. What a beauty.
This is an incredible success story, and one that could also work with other endangered species. So where better to end my woodland journey than in the sky, up close and personal with this majestic creature, for a bird's eye view of the red kite in all its glory.
Oh my word! That's amazing! Go right underneath us! Oh, wow! A top side view of a red kite. Oh, on that side! Yeah! Red kites have got 2.5 times the visual acuity of humans, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's because humans have got really good vision. It's actually 140 times better than a rat, which is very useful if you're a red kite and you want to eat a rat. Wow, this is amazing.
The wild creatures that share our space help us to feel connected to the world, reminding us of our place in the natural order.
What a landscape.
Britain has a wonderful natural legacy, and we should strive to protect it.
We all live near places as beautiful as this. And the important part of conserving them is using them, falling in love with them, being part of them, to start reaping the rewards of being out in the natural world.
Next time on Britain's Big Wildlife Revival, we take a journey to the British coastline, where some of our best-loved animals are under threat.
These birds still face dangers, and it makes my blood boil.
Mike Dilger shows us how creating shelter brings wildlife flocking to your garden. And I'm up in North with wildlife.
Wow, absolutely incredible. And to find out more about how you can make a difference to the endangered wildlife you've just seen, go online to bbc.co.uk Summer of Wildlife. Countryfile tonight at 7 on BBC One Wales explores a place of inspiration in the beautiful Oxfordshire landscape. Then the Antiques Roadshow returns, a new series at 8. And there's more wildlife available on the BBC iPlayer. Catch up with the burrowers.
It's the halfway point of another incredible season. Hamilton's fortunes may have finally changed, but can anyone challenge Vettel's supremacy as the F1 circus heads to Spa? The Belgian Grand Prix. Live coverage starts Saturday the 24th of August on BBC One and Radio 5 Live.
Now on BBC One Wales, the early evening news with Kate Silverton and Rebecca John.
A warning over the cost of HS2, the government's plan for high-speed rail. A new study says it could reach £80 billion, double current estimates. Egypt's military leaders claim Al-Qaeda was behind recent violence, which claimed hundreds of lives. Inside the prison